In the heart of the Ural Mountains, amidst the biting winds and the unyielding snow, remains yet a tale shrouded in decades of mystery. The Dyatlov Pass Incident, an almost innocuous-sounding name that offers only whispers of the chilling story that truly took place, sits in the history books as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries ever. It was here in the dead of winter in 1959 that 9 seasoned and skilled hikers ventured into the cold wilderness, seeking adventure and glory. As the moon cast its pale light over the snow-blanketed slopes of Kholat Syakhl, aptly known as the Mountain of the Dead, the group had set up their tent and settled in the relative warmth for the night ahead. The silence of the night was shattered soon after, but for reasons we know not, and through avenue we still have no concrete answer for, all that was left in the morning were the ruins of their previous night. The hikers' tent torn and abandoned, their bodies scattered across the landscape with injuries that defied logical explanation. A series of clues that seemed to lead only to more questions. This is the Dyatlov Pass Incident. And this is the red thread.
Ooh, yeah. I love that
Yeah.
part. I love
Sick.
that part, like where you finally get to say, this is the red thread. That's my favorite part of
Feels
these
good.
stories.
I feel powerful
Yeah.
now. I'm ready to punch something. That was dope. For those who are going to be mad in the comments, I didn't ask to read the intro. Jackson granted me
I
the
begged.
honor of
Jackson-
reading it this time.
He just got lazy. Jackson said, I'm tired of working hard. You can just take this one.
He types up 20
I wanna-
pages. I'm through. I've had it.
Types up 20 pages, is called the lazy one. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. He types up 20 pages. He's like, if I have to read that intro, that's a bridge too far. That's the last of it.
Yeah, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. I will not read this. What I wrote is too much.
It was too much for me to speak out loud. I wanted someone else to speak it to me. I wanted to be on the receiving end for once. I just wanted to know what it felt like. It was pretty cool.
It felt good to read the intro. I was a little disappointed because I kind of wanted to start reading and be like, you're in the mountains of Dyatlov. You're an avalanche. You're going really fast.
Damn it! I should have done that. I should have been from the personification of an avalanche. That would have been so much better.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, that was much more like a synopsis as opposed to like a boots on the ground type intro that you've become known for.
Well, I don't want to be known for anything, Charlie. I want to push the art form forward. I want to try different things.
You're
fun.
Well, this was a Wikipedia summary, whereas before you're given
I know.
very abstract concept pieces.
Hey, I
avant-garde.
still think that was cool. That was
it was good.
It gives the vibe.
I liked it, but hold on, let me just so the audience is happy. You're an avalanche. You're moving really fast towards a person. You're also a person. An avalanche is moving really fast towards you. This is the red thread.
Yes, it's the red thread. Hello, everyone. My name is Jackson. Charlie is here. Isaiah gave a wonderful rendition of my creation there. Before we really get into the, how did you pronounce it? Dyatlov. I pronounce it Dyatlov. Is that right?
Dyatlov. I've seen like Doltov or whatever. I have no idea. My rule for foreign words is I will try, but I don't promise. So
yeah, well, that's the same as me, and I've got a history over this entire the red thread has taught me more than anything that I just don't know how to pronounce like 90% of words apparently. So that's fantastic. That's very comforting. I'm gonna go with Dyatlov just because that's what I'm used to.
Dyatlov sounds good. Yeah,
That's what I always said for it too. Yeah, I always said Dyatlov.
I think it's based off my knowledge of like Chernobyl, like the miniseries and stuff like that. Because Dyatlov was I think he was one of the main guys in that.
yeah, you're right.
Anyway, so before we start talking about Dyatlov, just another, I say this every time, but we got show notes below, 20 pages of information about Dyatlov Pass Incident for you to go through on your own. Or you can read it along with the episode. That always works as well. There's pictures, sources, and stuff like that in there. Highly recommend you go check it out just so you don't miss any information and stuff like that. And we are also on YouTube, so you can see pictures and stuff. If you're listening to this on audio, you can go over to YouTube. Did I tell you guys that for the last 3 or 4 episodes, I've been putting secret little riddles in each video version of the episodes that lead to like a kind of like an ARG that people have to solve, and then the first person to solve it gets a little prize from me on Twitter. Have you guys?
I did see that. That's pretty hot.
Yeah,
I
you
dig
told
that.
us.
That's a cool note.
It's mostly just been little ciphers. Yeah, it's just been little ciphers.
So far they've been just stuff kind of referencing ciphers and stuff like that. But at any moment you want to, like, I don't know, form a new religion or something, that would be a good way to start it, I think.
Yeah, I could work my way up to that. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, so you can see that on YouTube, or you can just listen on audio platforms like iTunes and Spotify and all of that kind of stuff. If you're listening to the Red Thread on your commute, we appreciate it. Drive safe, please. Don't crash listening to us. That is very bad PR. Feel free to share it around, leave a rating, all of that good stuff. And also a big thank you to the sponsors of this episode, ZocDoc and Current. Thank you to them for making the show possible, and thank you for listening to the episode as well. You guys make it possible as well. Now let's talk about Dyatlov. Where's your knowledge level, guys?
I've watched a couple YouTube documentaries on it.
Mm-hmm. You want to shout anyone out specifically?
No, not really. I think everyone that's covered it has done a really good job so far, to be honest.
No, those got no free clout here. No.
Yeah.
If they want to pay for sponsorship,
so you won't hear from them ever again on this show.
I was just setting you up for the easy PR win there, but okay.
It's not really like a PR. I mean, everyone knows Lamino. It's like Lamino did an amazing job. I'm pretty sure Nick Crowley covered it at some point as well.
He did one.
Well, I was just asking which ones you specifically watched and enjoyed. That was it.
Well, they're all good. Like, I've seen three on this. I think even didn't BuzzFeed do one too? Even theirs was
probably
good.
Yeah, the BuzzFeed Unsolved, Shane and Ryan. I'm pretty sure they did one. There's of course, like you mentioned, the Laminos is popular. My buddies at the Lore Lodge did one. I think Mr. Ballin did one. I know. Yeah, there's a bunch of people have covered it. I actually was going to cover it a while back, but then I looked into a lot of the details, which we'll talk about when we get to it, but decided instead to go with what I think is a slightly more mysterious disappearance, the Kamar Daban incident. But yeah, I did all the research for the Dyatlov Pass, so I think I know the layout, the gist of it, so to speak, so I'm pretty familiar.
Yeah.
It's a cool story. Very cool story.
There's a lot of different details and stuff, but it is definitely one of those ones that is like very popular to talk about in YouTube video essays and stuff, which was surprising to me because we still had it like heavily not recommended, heavily asked for in like YouTube comments. It's probably the most requested topic so far in the entire run of Red Thread. People have been asking for Dyatlov, so I thought, hey, why not go over this, see if there's any additional details that we can pick up on. And see what happens.
That's surprising because this is probably the most documented incident in YouTube history with so many high quality video essays on it.
It's up there. It's definitely up there. Yeah.
Would you, just a tangent, but do you guys ever find yourself just like watching video essays about things you already know just because it's on some level kind of like just comforting, weirdly? Like I'll watch essays about like I'll watch like video essays about just really banal stuff just to make myself feel like comforted. I don't know.
I agree. I know exactly what you're talking about, but the way you phrased it make me feel like I don't agree.
It's
Do you ever
less
watch
of an
videos about
thing.
things you know, but you know that you don't know, but you know it?
I just want to pick up on more details about things that I already know about.
I do that all the time. Like if I make a video about something, I'll listen to other people's videos about it after the video's up just to like see how they covered it, see what their idea was. Yeah, I do that a lot. Especially like JFK videos and stuff where I'm like pretty conspiratorial about it. I'll watch like another YouTuber's video and be like I remember when, speaking of Lamino, I love his channel a lot, but when he did his video about the book depository during the JFK shooting, I was sitting there the whole time like, oh, it's so well done, but I disagree with everything, but it's so well done. I love it. Yeah. So yeah, I do that a lot.
It wasn't conspiratorial enough.
Well, I mean, his was kind of saying why it wasn't that much of a conspiracy, like kind of making the things that Lee Harvey Oswald did immediately after, like how it makes sense. But I would conjecture it doesn't make sense because a lot of those reports were falsified, but that's a different episode. But Lamino does incredible work. Very jealous of his video production.
Incredible stuff. Yeah, really good. Got a nice voice as well.
Yeah.
So let's just a brief synopsis, even though I kind of already did give you a synopsis through the intro story. On January 23rd, 1959, a group of 10 Russian ski hikers embarked on a challenging expedition across the northern Ural Mountains. Departing from Sverdlovsk by train, they were in high spirits as they set out for Ivdel, the starting point of their journey. It was comprised of 8 men and 2 women, and they aimed to originally commence their hike on February 1st. That's when they would actually start hiking the mountain, with the ultimate destination being Otorten, which it's a trek that's about, I think it's 321 kilometers, so 200 miles, and they were planning to do it over 16 days. I like going hiking and stuff.
I would not do a 200-mile hike. Good Lord.
No, that's especially through like extreme temperatures and snowstorms and blizzards, dangerous treks like that. And again, like this is in the 1950s as well. Like they don't have the creature comforts that we do now. That's an enormous trek.
I know that like people hike the Yeti and stuff like that, and that's like, even further, but it's also in like the mid 60s for most of the hike. It's not like freezing cold tundra. Yeah.
So this speaks to their level of confidence, their level of knowledge, and it makes sense because they were all members of like their university's sporting lodge or sporting club, basically. So they were all really seasoned hikers. But this is a difficult hike. It's classified as a Category 3 expedition, and they anticipated facing daunting terrain and rigorous conditions, which is pretty obvious. A few days before they were set to actually begin the hike, so once they were there already, but they were waiting to actually begin their hike, one of the hikers, Yuri Yudin, fell ill at the outset and was compelled to return home, avoiding the same fate that befell all of the other hikers. So he got extremely lucky. He got extremely lucky that he fell ill. Otherwise, he would have just been another
I
lost
feel like
member of this expedition.
Happens a lot in these stories. There's always like one survivor who like narrowly dodges it because they get sick or something. Like every time I read about like a naval expedition that got lost, it's always like, oh, the only survivors were 3 guys who like got a tummy ache and had to get out of there. Yeah.
It must be such a complicated feeling to avoid that, because on one hand you are probably so happy that you avoided that kind of outcome, like, oh, thank God I didn't go on that hike, right? But on the other hand, imagine the amount of guilt you must feel that you are happy.
Yeah, it's survivor's guilt. That's what, like, car accidents and stuff like that happens a lot. I wonder though in this case if you'd feel survivor's guilt considering you didn't actually go on it though. I think it'd be more of just like the sadness of losing your friends.
Well, he was 5 days in.
He did go on the hike. He was there with them in like the starting lodge or whatever, like he took the trip there, and then he was like, no, he felt ill, so he turned around and went home, basically. Which makes sense. You don't want to do a hike when you're feeling ill. There's nothing like really conspiratorial about this, I don't feel. So and also to your point, Charlie, he does feel survivor's guilt. Like there's some journal entries and some like interviews with him where he does express pretty severe guilt over not being there with them. So that's sad. Well, I guess you don't know until you're in that situation.
Put it this way: if the 3 of us were gonna go to the Denver airport and we like met in like I don't know Phoenix to go do it, and then I'm like, oh sorry, I've gotta use the toilet and I missed the flight, and then you guys get killed by like, giant spiders under the airport, I'd feel bad. I'd be like, aw, I could have saved them.
You'd feel even worse when I start haunting you for not going.
Yeah, but the streams would be crazy. It's like I'm sitting there like playing a video game and you just hear like over my shoulder, all right, that's about it, see ya. Like
then I cut your internet and you're just fucking livid.
Yeah, Charlie's a ghost, but he's a really lame one. He just like messes
he's
with
just
your
a really
fiber.
Annoying ghost. Sometimes your phone will just like restart.
I keep flicking his FPS from 60 to 30 in his games.
Curse you, Charlie. I'm glad that spider killed you.
You'll know it. You'll know immediately that it's Charlie as well. You'll be like, fucking Charlie again. And then you have to get like a priest and exorcist out to get rid of the annoying ghost that just flicks around your graphic settings.
Well, then you'd feel even worse because that's such an extreme measure to take for what amounts to just a nuisance. I'd be even more mad.
Yeah, it's like killing you for a second time.
I go to my closet, all my Hawaiian shirts are now like white t-shirts. Like, you can't keep getting away with it.
He just keeps ordering Amazon deliveries for white t-shirts.
Stop. Send these back. The ghost is doing this, not me. Yeah, that'll be cool. We should do that. Yeah, we should kill Charlie so that happens. That'd be cool.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
All right, so the location was the Dyatlov Pass, obviously in the northern Ural Mountains. The hikers established their campsite on the slopes of Kolatsiakul. I don't know how to pronounce that, but that's also known as Dead Mountain, and it's an isolated and desolate area. So they originally trekked through from the starting area up to this area known as Dead Mountain, and then set up a little camp. I think they were about 3 or 4 days into their trek, and then they set up the camp there. And this is an area that's just very kind of desolate, and there's forests and stuff like that, but it's extremely difficult to survive in. Obviously, there are native people in that kind of area. I'm blanking on the name of them, the native people in that area, but there are kind of native communities in that area, especially during those times. I think it's like Mansi. Does that sound right, Isaiah?
The people who live around the Urals, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I know it's a bunch of different like groups of people. They're not isolated, but there's kind of like different factions, so to speak, of people. I'm not sure if that's the word for all of them or if it's a specific group. To be honest, like the sort of like Central Europe, Asia area mountains, I'm pretty dumb on. So I'll take your word for it. Yeah, sounds
okay.
Good.
I think they're known as the Mansi indigenous people, and that's what I've got in the document, just a little bit lower. Okay. So I think that's correct. So let's go over the hikers' biographies and get to know each of them before we find out what happened to them, just so that we can kind of color our perception a little bit on who this story.
Well, would you like me to take the?
Yeah, go for it.
The descriptions and but I'm going to horribly butcher all these names. I hope y'all are ready for this. So, first of all, we have Igor Dyatlov, for whom the incident is named. He was born on January the 13th, 1936, and he was the leader of the hiking group. An engineer and student at Ural Polytechnic Institute, Igor often embarked on trips with his brother Vyacheslav, and fellow hikers from UPI. In 1959, Igor initiated the plans for a challenging 60-day cross-country skiing expedition in the northern Urals, traversing the traditional lands of the Mansi indigenous people. After obtaining approval from the UPI Sports Club for his proposal, Igor recruited classmates to join him on the trek. So, again, Igor is the reason the expedition gets its name.
Yeah, he's kind of like the leader, the expedition leader, the ringleader, the one that started this entire idea of going on this hike in the first place.
Hey guys, you ever walk 200 miles in the snow? You want to? Yeah, how's that guy?
He must have been very charismatic, or all the other people must have just been like adrenaline junkies, basically.
I mean, look at that picture of him. He's got like a kind smile, you know?
He does look nice, yeah.
He does look nice. I'd go on a hiking trip with him. I'd go to the Denver airport with him, I think.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job on Vyashev's, or whatever his brother's name was, by the way.
Oh, is that
exactly right?
Is that Vyashev?
I assume it is.
Cool.
Yeah,
okay.
you did it really well, I
Thanks.
think.
Time for that streak to end. Next we have
the comments
Yuri.
will probably tear him to pieces if it wasn't.
Yeah.
So we'll know if he got it right soon.
Throw me to the dogs. I'll come back still unable to pronounce the names correctly.
We're trying.
No, what I'm about to do is I'm about to hit him with like the death by 1,000 cuts, because I'm going to mispronounce so many names here in a second they won't know which one to correct. All right. So next we have Yuri Doroshnik. Yuri Doroshniko. And that one has an O and that one doesn't. One of those. Yuri was born on January the 29th of 1938. He was a fourth-year student studying radio engineering at UPI. Yuri was said to have possessed a spontaneous and daring nature. He was known for his impulsive adventures, such as boldly confronting a giant bear with a geologist hammer during a previous camping excursion.
That is so badass.
Yo! Bro, hold on. We got Igor.
Are geologist hammers like even smaller than normal hammers? I think they are, right? They're like little picks.
If it's what I'm thinking of, yeah.
I'm imagining a gavel.
Yeah. It's like a little one-handed hammer. And he approached a bear. Yo, this guy's cool. Bro, no wonder they were so willing to go out there. They've got Hammerman at the front of the pack.
I think that probably means, like, the mystery of this situation, we can comfortably rule out bears, because there's no way bears would have been the cause of this if Yuri Doroshenko was around. He would have solved that issue real quick.
Yeah, the bears are afraid of him.
Yeah, bears are off the we have the bear hunter out there with him. So Yuri had previously been romantically involved with Zinaida Kolmogorova, but they amicably split and remained friends. Zinaida,
that is actually like pertinent. Well, it's not necessarily pertinent.
She's one of the other.
She's one of the. Yeah, she's one of the other hikers. I wasn't just going into like gossip mode.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys hear Yuri and Zinaida were hooking up? Previously.
Yuri and Zinaida sitting in a tree fighting off bears with hammers. Yeah, that's him. Next, we have Alexander Kolvatov. Alexander was born on November the 16th of 1934 and faced adversity from a young age following the death of his father, which precipitated a decline in his family's social standing. Coupled with his mother's illness, financial struggles became a prevailing theme in his upbringing. Despite these challenges, Alexander channeled his energies into his academic pursuits. A fourth-year physics major student at UPI, he dedicated himself to his studies while actively participating in social activities like the sports club. Alexander was a prominent member of the Institute Commissal Committee, assuming leadership of the shooting sports section within the Russian Communist Youth Organization. He ventured into hiking, tackling demanding treks such as Mount Sablia. So basically, Alexander came up from a hard upbringing, became a very skilled outdoorsman, able to take care of himself.
Yeah, they all sound like really cool people so far, just actual Chads.
I'm waiting for the one that's like, this guy had a tendency to bring bombs with him wherever he went, and he was seen stealing bombs.
Was an American spy.
Yeah. I'm waiting for that one.
This guy was a prankster who brought some kind of bear device to attract all of them.
This guy was a convicted arsonist.
This guy loved bringing bears everywhere. Yeah, he was known for sneaking bears into locker rooms at school. Yeah. Ludmila Dubinina. Dubnina. Yeah. So Ludmila was born on May the 12th, 1938, and experienced a transient childhood, frequently relocating with her family before finally settling in Sverdlovsk, where when her father was transferred there for work. At the time of the incident, she was a fourth-year student at UPI, studying engineering and economics. Ludmila was an active member of the sports club and also had many other hobbies such as singing and photography. In 1957, during a student hike, Ludmila was accidentally shot in the leg by a hunter accompanying the group. Wounded, she needed to turn back to recover. This didn't stop her from continuing to hike, evidenced by her successful completion of a Category 2 difficulty hike in the northern Ural region the following year. What is up with these, like, Russian women that are like...
She's been fucking shot and she returns to a hike, like, 6 months later. It's actually, like, impressive how cool these people are.
You gotta finish what you start.
Well, who gets hired to, like, lead a college sports club and accidentally shoots a girl in the leg? Like, what?
Aren't hunting trips and, like, these kind of treks, like, where most firearm-related accidents happen?
Well, it's normally because it's inexperienced people are holding the guns, walking around. But the fact that the guide is the one who shot her, that's kind of weird.
Well, I mean, it's not that uncommon, though, like the whole Dick Cheney shit. Like, it happens. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's possible. It's very possible. Yeah. But normally on these, it's like the rich guy who's never held a rifle before who trips and fires and causes something, rather than like the guy leading the group who shoots a woman in the leg.
Plus people say that Dick Cheney was actually trying to kill that person. So
yeah,
it's not like it was completely an accident, maybe, potentially.
Next episode of the Red Thread, Jackson gets what's it called when you send someone to a different country for trial?
Extradited.
Extradited. Jackson gets extradited to the U.S. Yep, there you go.
That could be a fun red thread, though. Just the Dick Cheney incident.
Dick Cheney.
That'd be pretty fun. It's like me and Charlie like sitting outside of the courtroom while Jackson's in there like talking about it. Man, I hope he doesn't get executed. That'd be sad.
Dick Cheney comes out with a gun. He gets to do the executing.
The judge is like, well, we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. Dick, come on out.
An actual, like, old-timey duel with Dick Cheney. That would go so hard.
That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah. What happens between two consenting adults at 30 paces is none of the government's business. Sorry. All right. Yuri Krivchenko, sure. Yuri was born on February the 7th, 1935, pursued studies in construction and hydraulics at UPI, graduating in 1957. His close friendship with Igor often led them on joint expeditions. Yuri worked at Chelyabinsk, a nuclear facility where the Kistim disaster happened on September the 29th of 1957. He was actively involved in the cleanup efforts following the plutonium plant leak. During
Classic
the trip,
Russian nuclear facilities always.
Look at our lineup currently. We have the bear hunter. We've got a woman who's been shot and keeps going. We've got like all of these cool guys, and then we've got Yuri, a nuclear plant worker. Like all these guys are like superhuman so far.
Yeah, well, it continues on. This Yuri guy sounds pretty cool.
During the trip, Yuri brought along his mandolin. Oh man, this guy, he's so cool. I love him already. He brought along his mandolin. However, this actually led to an unexpected encounter with the authorities. On the morning of January the 24th, he was detained by police at a train station in Serov for playing his mandolin. Witnesses described him as being in high spirits, singing loudly, and engaging in lively interactions like a street performer. After a brief interrogation, Yuri was released with a warning from the police about the prohibition of public singing. Dog.
No whimsy there, I guess.
No fun allowed. They
straight up footloosed him. Are you serious?
He got apprehended by the fun police for making too much joy.
I really thought like the whole communist Russia kind of being all grey and depressing was like overblown and a bit of a meme, but that, I mean, now that seems like super believable. You're not allowed to play the mandolin and just sing?
I mean, maybe not since 91, because after the USSR dissolved, maybe they're a bit better, but given recent events, maybe not, so I don't know. Maybe they're just, maybe it is so depressing that's like fun's not allowed. Put that mandolin up. Yeah.
Maybe Russia would be completely different now if they had allowed people to sing.
Yeah.
In the 40s.
Maybe if Yuri was still alive, he would have changed some stuff. Maybe the government took him out because of the mandolin. You never know. All right. So next we've got Rustam Slobodin. Slobodin.
Even their names are cool.
Rustam Slobodin is a really cool name.
Rustam was born on the 11th of January 1936. He graduated at UPI in 58. Slobodin was a talented athlete and had completed a trip from Frunze to Andakon with his father. It was a 300-meter trek that took place in the sparse mountainous area of Tian Shan. Was that 300 kilometers supposed to be?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
300 meters isn't all that impressive, if I'm being honest. You can see the end point.
Yeah. He walked on like a sports track behind a high school once with his father.
He walked to the end of his neighborhood street and back.
We did Slobodin a bit of a disservice here with putting that in his like obituary right now. That's his crowning achievement. He went walking for 300 meters once.
Looks like they don't call him Slobodin for nothing.
Oh, nice.
All right.
No, I'm assuming that's going to be 300 kilometers. Yeah.
Next, we have Zenata Kolmogorova. Zenadia was born on January the 12th of 1937, and they were a fifth-year student at UPI, specializing in radio engineering. She was said to be a very upbeat and social person with a positive energy that was almost infectious. Possessing a wealth of hiking experience, Zenadia once experienced a viper bite during a trip, but refused to lighten her load despite the pain, so as to not burden her companions. Were these people grown in a lab? Every one of them. My word.
Taken out by a viper and just shrugs it off. continues to carry her load. That's impressive.
Her commitment to both personal challenges and communal responsibilities was exemplary. Donato held the esteemed position of member and chairwoman within the qualifying commission at the UPI Hiking Club. Her extensive hiking resume boasted participation in 8 hikes, 2 of which she led, and she had embarked on 6 expeditions with 4 categorized as level 2 difficulty. A word.
Oh, real quick. So Zenaida was who was it? It was I think it was Yuri Doroshenko's
of the bear band. Yeah, the bear guy's romantic interest. Yeah, I see why. Couple. I would as a Russian man, I would also be like, wow, you did all that. It's pretty cool, pretty hot. Nikolai Thibault Brignol, probably, sure.
Yeah.
So Nikolai was born on the 5th of June, 1935. He had a turbulent upbringing with his father in and out of prison. In March of 53, he was admitted to UPI in the Department of Construction and graduated in 58, and then worked in a construction trust. During this time at UPI, he was a member of the hiking club where he participated in multiple hikes and had even led one himself. Okay, once again,
not a ton there for him.
Not a ton there. I mean, he led a hike, so that's something. Right, but yeah, for the not as superhuman as the others.
No bear combat or
yeah,
but still
no getting
probably
shot
a nice guy.
or bit by a viper and still going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, we have Simeon Zolotarov. So Simeon, also known as Sasha, was born in early 19 what? Yeah, was that
1921?
Oh no, it's 1921.
He was born in 1291.
Yes,
he's a superhuman.
These typos, Jackson.
Hey, you know what it is. You obviously don't think that he was born in 1291. You shouldn't believe everything that's there.
I don't know. I think maybe Jackson was trying to tell us that Simeon's a vampire. Could be, who knows?
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me with this cast of characters.
What's so funny is you have a parenthesis after it that says the date can be conflicting between his own documents and the registry in his birth town. But it's
maybe it was 1291 then.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like it seems here in the records he's 800 years old. Simeon served in the armed forces during the Great Patriotic War from 1941 to 46, and even received 4 military awards. After a few years, he ended up going to the Institute of Physical Education in Minsk, where he graduated in 1950. Then went on to become a senior tourism instructor at the Korovska tour base. Simeon had steel-capped teeth, tattoos, and a distinctive old-fashioned mustache.
Pretty
cool. Again,
a
Chad.
Why would you get
Super
steel-capped teeth? What does that do?
Let you chew into human flesh more easily.
Because he's a vampire, yeah.
It's something they used to do with people whose like teeth got broken up, or to prevent teeth getting broken up.
Okay.
Imagine is like old replacements, but a lot of guys in the military would get steel-capped teeth, just to make for one so they could chew through stuff. But I've heard stories of like steel teeth Russian guys like getting punched in the jaw and it hurts the other guy's hand, you know? Like,
oh, that's pretty
cool.
metal
stuff.
When you say chew through stuff, like, do they chew through like barbed wire fences and shit like that?
No, I mean, you could theoretically if you had steel capped teeth, but I mean, literally, it's a hard material to chew food with and stuff like that.
So it's just.
But I mean, you could also chew through barbed wire. I guess that'd be pretty cool.
That would be cool. It's like bolt cutters in your mouth.
All right, and then the last we have is Yuri Yudin. So Yuri
the one that left.
Yes, Yuri is the sole survivor of the Dyatlov Pass tragedy, suffering from a
sciatica.
Oh, I haven't seen that spelled before, huh? That's weird. Yeah, sciatica flare up. In unbearable pain, he was forced to return home 5 days into the trip. Until he died in 2013, Yuri was tormented by guilt over the death of his friends. He reportedly visited the cemetery every year with deep survivor's guilt, causing him to think he should have been there with them at their end. When he had departed, everyone was upset. The group gave Yuri a mascot that he has always since kept hold of. Some people believed he was in love with Ludmilla, although he denies this. But he never married. It seems he deliberately loaded himself with lots of work during his final life to escape the ghost of his past. Yuri believed that the death of his friends was not natural. He declared, not long before his death, that he believed they were taken from their tent at gunpoint and murdered. Dubina was the most outspoken of the group, he said, which is why her tongue may have been cut, which is a detail of the death we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah. And then there's a photo there's a photo in the document as well of Lyudmila, Yuri, Nikolai, and Rustam Slobodin all hanging out together. It seems like they were very close friends and a tight-knit group. And yeah, it's a shame about Yuri Yudin, and well, it's not a shame, he survived, so that's good, but it's a shame that he felt it kind of like haunted him for the rest of his life.
One incident ruined his life for the entirety of 60 years.
Yeah. Tragic.
Yeah, it's extremely sad.
I'll take this next part. So this is now getting into the discovery. As days passed without any communication from the hikers, their families grew increasingly concerned. Reports of heavy snowfall in the area intensified their worries, prompting frantic calls to UPI and the local bureau of the Communist Party, urging for assistance in locating the group. On February 20th, a search operation commenced, drawing volunteers from UPI, prison guards from the nearby Lidvel camp, Mansi hunters, local police, and military personnel who deployed planes and helicopters for aerial assistance. So they really took that seriously. They got the whole kit and caboodle coming out to try and locate the hikers.
Well, they do. They would today, I would think.
Yeah, but I mean, this is still like the 1959.
We wouldn't pull prison guards and stuff like that,
yeah,
right?
This is still a lot. This is still a huge turn up for it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The following day, ski tracks were discovered, leading to the eventual finding of the hiker's tent atop the desolate peak of Kholat Syakhl, or Dead Mountain. The tent, partially collapsed and buried under snow, lay empty. Upon digging it up, it became apparent that the tent had been deliberately slashed in several places. Despite the external damage, their interior remained remarkably orderly, with food laid out as if about to be eaten. Downhill from the tent, distinct footprints of multiple individuals were observed. These footprints suggested that the individuals were not wearing boots, but were instead either barefoot or wearing only socks, and a single set of footprints indicated that one person may have been wearing one boot. The trail of footprints went on for approximately 600 to 700 yards before abruptly halting near the edge of a tree line.
So what do you guys think so far? To me, that kind of screams that they obviously left the tent on a moment's notice because they were in multiple stages of undress or dress. Only one boot on, they didn't have time to put the other one on, obviously. So that's what it seems like to me.
I think that's the only logical explanation. I remember in, I don't remember which video, but one of the videos I watched on Dyatlov, they talk about how some people believed in, some kind of paranormal thing where they were being, hypnotized into leaving or led that way by some kind of force or some shit. But I think the only thing that really makes sense is that they were hurried out due to some kind of emergency.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. Real quick, before you continue, just a quick word from the sponsors of this episode. All right, guys, let's talk a bit about health in general. I know personally one of the most stressful things you can possibly do is think about your health. It just fills me with so much existential dread just thinking about it. It's this weird thing where I wait far too long before going to a doctor or something like that. And part of the reason is because it's just so frustratingly hard for me to go through the effort of finding the right fit, someone I'm comfortable with. And it just, the whole idea stresses me out way more than it should. And that impacts my health, and it subconsciously makes me not want to fix the issues or go to the doctor or anything like that. It's stupid, I know, but luckily the sponsor of this episode agrees with me. ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a completely free app and website that lets you easily search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. So ZocDoc makes it so much easier than the traditional method. When you think about it, it's kind of like those ads that you see when you're scrolling through the internet late at night. Trust me, there really are 15 highly intelligent doctors in your area right now waiting to meet up with you. And ZocDoc will make it as easy as humanly possible for you to figure out which one you should see, and then they'll make it as easy as possible to actually book the session itself. I tested the process out through the website myself. I decided I needed a dental checkup the next time I'm in Tampa, Florida. So I went on, and within 10 minutes, I had found a highly rated dentist that I could easily book very quickly. You don't have to contact a receptionist through the phone or sit on hold. You just book them through ZocDoc and you get an email immediately confirming your appointment. It's so easy. Not only that, you can crowdsource the right decision with verified reviews from actual patients, meaning you can choose the highest rated medical professional in your area for your own comfort. You can filter specifically for ones who take your insurance, and the filters really do cover basically any condition that I could think of when I was testing it out. So ZocDoc has you covered for whatever it is that's ailing you. the typical wait time between booking and seeing your doctor is just like 1 to 3 days on average, apparently, with the option of same-day appointments a lot of the time as well. So why would you call up a receptionist and have an awkward conversation on the phone when you can just use ZocDoc for free to book an appointment? So it's just so easy. It's a no-brainer. So go to ZocDoc.com/redthread and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/redthread. ZocDoc.com/redthread. Go meet a new doctor in your area right now. Thanks to ZocDoc for helping out literally everyone, and thank you to you guys for hearing them out. And now, over to me again. We can all relate to that situation where you're waiting for some money to come in from work and it's taking forever, and you've got bills piling up that you need to pay off as soon as possible, or you need to buy some groceries, stuff like that. Money is tight and it's becoming an issue and you need your paycheck now. It's stressful and annoying. Luckily, people using Current have access to Paycheck Advance, which is a new service that Current offers that'll help with unexpected expenses. With their Paycheck Advance, people using Current can access up to $500 before payday once they qualify. No lines of credit and no credit checks. Not only that, but Current knows that fees add stress when you're already, stressed and behind, so that's a bad thing. That's why Paycheck Advance is free. You can withdraw as many times as you need without additional fees. So don't get stuck waiting for payday. Get Current and get Paycheck Advance today. Go to current.com/redthread or download the app. That's Current, CURRENT.com/redthread. Terms apply. Paycheck Advance is offered by Finco Advance LLC, a financial technology company, not a bank. Available amounts may vary and are subject to change at any time. For full terms and conditions, visit current.com or call 888-851-1172. Thanks to Current for sponsoring this episode, and thanks so much to everyone in the audience for listening to these spots and helping the show out in that way. It really does mean so much to us. Please check the sponsors out if any of them interest you. Otherwise, back to the show. Thanks. Now returning to the Dyatlov Pass incident. Charlie, did you want to continue?
Yes, please. On February 27th, the first bodies discovered were those of Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko, found beneath a cedar.
It's not so fun, is it? Huh?
Yeah, I can do all of them except Krivonishenko. That's the only one that I'm gonna get hung up on.
It's too many letters. Get rid of them. Yeah.
Found beneath a cedar tree in the forest beside an extinguished fire. Yuri was wearing an undershirt, a long sleeve checkered
well, wait,
shirt.
there's two Yuris.
All right, God damn it, you're not going to let me get away. Okay. Yuri Krivonishenko was wearing an undershirt, a long sleeve checkered shirt, swimming pants, long underpants, and a torn sock on his left foot with no shoes. He exhibited signs of frostbite, along with multiple bruises and abrasions on various parts of his body. A piece of skin from his right hand was found in his mouth, suggesting he may have attempted to awaken his frozen, unresponsive hands or suppress a cry of pain.
Oof.
3 distinct cutaneous wounds with sharp edges were evident on his left hip. Hypothermia was determined as his cause of death.
Well, wait, you say oof there, Isaiah. I'm assuming you think that maybe he bit down with a lot of force for there to be skin in his mouth. But
yeah, either way, if he bit down to he had to do something and he was biting his hand to stop from screaming, or if he was trying to wake his hands back up, either way, that's brutal. Biting.
But I also, he's probably he had frostbite, so I'm assuming that the skin
he was probably trying to wake his hand up. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but the skin will also maybe would have come off easier.
Yeah, he probably didn't have to bite down that hard to get this.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least he wouldn't have felt it, the level of it.
True, yeah.
Brutal situation.
Yeah, does frostbite get rid of, it kills the nerves, right? So you don't feel anything?
Late stage, yeah. It would, I don't know if you wouldn't feel anything because you still have, deep tissue nerves in your hands and stuff, but it would be, this is dumbing it down a lot, but how, when your arm falls asleep, you can't feel it for a bit, or you can't feel this top layer of your skin. It's kind of like that. Only you're a lot more cold and miserable, of course.
So then Yuri Doroshenko was wearing a sleeveless cotton undershirt, a short sleeve checkered button-up shirt, shorts, swimming trunks, and a blue cotton underpants with a sizable tear on the front right side. He wore mismatched wool socks, with the left sock being burnt, and no shoes. Liver mortis spots on the back of his neck, torso, and extremities did not correspond with his position at discovery, indicating he may have been moved after his death. His body bore numerous bruises and abrasions with traces of moss and pine needles found in his hair. The right side of his head showed burns, while blood covered his ears, nose, and lips. Swelling and dark red hemorrhaging were observed on his upper lip, and his right cheek displayed a gray foam accompanied by gray liquid emanating from his mouth, likely due to pulmonary edema. Edema. God, jeez.
Edema, yeah.
Medical experts assessed these injuries as non-lethal, proposing that Yuri may have inflicted them upon himself in a state of agony, possibly striking himself with rocks and ice. Speculation arose regarding the origin of the gray liquid on his cheek, suggesting it could have resulted from external pressure on his chest cavity or a fall from a tree.
Yeah, I think though, I don't know if I mentioned it in this document, but there are reports that the tree that they were sitting underneath, where their bodies were found, it was a cedar tree, and its branches were all like kind of torn and like shredded and stuff like that. It looked like someone had climbed it previously, what the assertion is. Yeah, and so it's possible that he may have climbed to scope out the area and then fallen and damaged himself in that capacity.
Mm.
So I remember
that would explain the blood and stuff like that too. I don't know about the burns though.
The burns are interesting, and there's a theory later on that we might get into. Well, we will get into that.
They were next to an extinguished fire, right? So the burns could have come from that fire. Like maybe he fell from the tree onto the fire.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah, possibly, yeah.
But I remember in one of the videos, again, I don't remember which one, this was also where they got into like a more, I wouldn't say conspiratorial because this whole thing is so like mysterious and the circumstances so confusing, but they were talking about how this could have been like them being tortured out here, and then like they escaped, and that's why he like bit down to stop from screaming so they couldn't find him again, shit like that, which is also why they had like all these abrasions that could be from them getting like cut or tortured or whatever.
The issue with those kinds of theories is I don't think that there's enough evidence in the environment to kind of build up to that. Like, there's no, if there were actually like a military force out there or a group of people that were interrogating 10 hikers, I think there would have been far more evidence left behind in that, of footprints, stuff like that.
Well, not necessarily. In an environment like that, I feel like that's constantly going to be changing with like, snow falling, like all that. I feel like that could easily get away.
Except there were the way that most of these bodies were discovered was through footprints.
That's true. The footprints from them survived. So how the fuck would the torturers erase the? Yeah. Not saying I believe in those conspiracies, just saying that they're out there.
I mean, I'm not ruling anything out with this one. It's just there's not enough evidence to definitively say one way or the other. So a lot of the conspiracies like that, I think, are more than valid enough anyway to talk about.
So later that day, the bodies of Igor Dyatlov and Zenaida Kolmogorova. Man, when you were pronouncing these, Isaiah, I thought you were just a fucking buffoon, but like saying them out loud is so much harder than reading them.
Yeah, it's not so fun, isn't it? Look, everyone.
Funny how that works.
Point and laugh at the other guy with dark long hair and a beard. Haha, look at you, stupid.
Did you really just say that reading them is easier than speaking them out loud? Of course it is. What the fuck do you mean?
Like in my head, I think most people have like a little voice in their head, so when I'm like reading this, I'm hearing it in my voice in my head, and I'm like, oh, it's so easy. It's just clearly Kolmogorova. Oh, there it is.
Don't you? Have you guys heard of the people that don't have an inner monologue and don't have a voice in their head? I don't believe it, because I have a voice in my head. You have a voice in your head. I really don't think that I don't think it's real.
I think it's just not recognizing what you're saying, because I feel like everyone has to have some kind of inner monologue.
Yeah.
Unless you only think in like pictures.
I have heard some people say that like once they hear about something, or like say they watch a movie or something, they never think about things unless they are talking about them out loud. There's no inner thought, inner conversation. And I can't.
So they're just entirely led by impulses.
They're on autopilot constantly.
What the fuck does that mean?
The time. Yeah.
You don't have any free will. You're just kind of like
they don't do things unless it is being discussed. Like unless they are actively talking or doing something about it. There's no consideration. No.
That is actual like NPC behavior.
I know. It's terrifying.
NPC behavior.
It is terrifying. Yeah.
All right, okay. But anyway, they were discovered further up the slope, suggesting they had been attempting to make their way back to the tent before passing away. They were found facing the tent with tightly clenched fists. Igor Dyatlov's body was located approximately 300 meters from the cedar tree, mostly buried under the snow, with only his clenched fists visible above his chest. He was dressed in an unbuttoned, fur sleeveless vest, originally belonging to Yuri Yudin, who had given it to Doroshenko, a blue sweater, a long-sleeve red cotton shirt containing 4 anti-inflammatory pills in the breast pocket, a blue sleeveless cotton singlet, ski pants, 1 cotton sock on his left foot, 1 woolen sock on his right foot, and no shoes. Additionally, a watch on his wrist had been stopped at precisely 5:31.
Interesting.
Yeah. What would stop a watch? All of the watches in this on these individuals, a lot of them had watches. All of them stopped at varying times. Is it just from being in the snow? Probably the water
freeze up the gears for sure.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. That's not super suspicious.
But I guess that would give an idea of when he finally succumbed in the snow. Then surely,
yeah, I'm sure it was good for the forensics, but it's not like there's anything mysterious about the watch stopping.
Yeah.
I will say though, their outfits are really what they were found wearing is all very interesting because they're in just this mishmash of different things in different states of disarray. It's just very odd.
If they knew they had to leave the tent for whatever reason, I'm assuming they just grabbed whatever they could to put on while they were leaving.
Yeah, but if they had time to grab and put stuff on, I feel like they would have put things on that made more sense. The first thing you'd probably grab is a fucking giant coat, right? I feel like they had no time at all to dress. It was just whatever they were in at the time.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, definitely. I thought you were saying they didn't have enough time to style match and make sure their colors.
Oh no,
and stuff like that.
I just meant being found in just this complete hodgepodge of random little assortments, one different sock, a cotton sock, a wool sock, but no shoes, that kind of stuff.
The shoes thing is what gets me because if you knew you were going to be walking in the snow, if you were heading out of the tent and you knew that you were going to be walking in snow, I would think you would hyper focus on getting some shoes.
Yeah, that'd be another one of your priorities, you would imagine.
Yeah.
But if you're panicking a lot, maybe it just doesn't cross your mind.
I'm sure that's the case, yeah.
Dyatlov suffered no internal injuries, but was found with extensive abrasions and bruises covering various parts of his body, including his face, forehead, upper eyelids, cheek, etc., knees, hands, legs, and ankles. Dried blood was observed on his lips, and his hand joints displayed brown-red bruises indicative of potential hand-to-hand combat injuries. Additionally, he had superficial wounds and incisions on his left hand and right ankle. The cause of his death was determined to be hypothermia.
That's an interesting one to me. Injuries kind of suggesting hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
How else would you cause bruising on your knuckles and stuff like that if not using your fist in that capacity?
Yeah, I have no idea. That's definitely a mysterious one.
Yeah. It is interesting how they all kind of came out of this with a lot of different injuries that don't necessarily align with one another. If they were all taken in the same event, I would have thought that their injuries would be more consistent.
The only thing I can kind of write a lot of these as is this was the 50s, correct? Or the 60s? Yep. Or
it was 50s.
50s. Okay, so and the bodies had been out there a while, so maybe natural bruising from early decomposition was mistaken for bruising, but I think they knew the difference, right? Or at least the
I would assume that they would be able to pinpoint post-mortem bruising.
Yeah, versus pre-death bruising. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it's strange.
I forgot about a lot of these details. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched those videos, so a lot of these are a bit foggy to me now. Zeneda was located approximately 630 meters from the cedar tree, lying face down. She was dressed in 2 hats, a long-sleeve undershirt, a sweater, a checkered shirt, and another sweater with a torn cuff on the right sleeve. The sweaters were worn inside out. She also wore cotton sport pants, trousers, ski pants with 3 small holes at the bottom of the right leg, 3 pairs of socks, and no shoes. Of all the discovered hikers so far, she had the most extensive clothing protection. She was also found in possession of her 5 rubles and a military-style protective mask.
So she has time to put on 2 hats and a military-style protective mask, but no shoes?
That's interesting.
It's so strange.
That almost... This is 630 meters from the tree the other two were at, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's wearing 2 shirts, and they're inside out, so no shoes. So it sounds like all of them left wearing basic clothes, and then maybe after the 2 of them die by the tree, or they're about to die, she takes their clothes, or they give them to her, and she quickly throws them on, although the clothes are inside out, and then makes it, 630 meters away before dying. So
that's kind of interesting.
That is an interesting theory.
Yeah, it sounds like she took the clothes off, because that would explain why she wasn't wearing any shoes, because none of them were wearing shoes, but she took what clothes she had from the 2 others.
I just can't believe that, not many of them are wearing shoes. We should add another conspiracy into this, that there was, a shoe thief out here or something.
What it likely was... Now, hold on. There were no survivors, right? Were any of them discovered with... Okay, except Yuri, yeah. Were any of them discovered with shoes? Or... It alternatively doesn't have to be anyone who was found. If there was someone else out there with them and you were prepared to make a long hike back somewhere, you would want to take spare shoes, right? Because you can go through them pretty quick, especially if they're the wrong size. So maybe if there was a sole survivor who walked out, he took a bunch of the shoes. But what more than likely happened is they were all rushed out of their tents, say middle of the night, in different directions, and then they had to scrounge around with what they had, what they picked up as they were walking out, or dragged out of their tents potentially.
Yeah
She had the protective mask. What do you think? That's something that she brought with her?
Yeah, I would assume that they would have taken masks on this kind of hike.
Is this like a ski mask type thing?
I was picturing goggles. Yeah, some kind of military.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's something she'd have access to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just went through the document and had a quick glance. I think most people either had no shoes or just 1 shoe.
Okay. Yeah, what that sounds like is they were forced out of their tent away from their gear and then scrounged through what they had, what they were already wearing.
And for some reason couldn't go back to the tent to get anything.
And couldn't go back to the tent. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have to remember as well that this was likely in the middle of the night. It was probably pitch black, very dark environment, maybe even a snowstorm, I believe. So I doubt once they got split up, I don't think that they would have been able to go back to each other to loot each other to find collect shoes and stuff like that. I think once they got split up, I think that was probably it. That's my presumption, because it's at the middle of the night. I guess they could shout to each other and stuff like that, and maybe that's why one of the guys climbed the tree, was to see where all the other people were. I guess it's possible.
The if I remember correctly, isn't the leading theory that it was an avalanche that got them all out of the tent and forced them into this frenzy, going in all kinds of different directions?
I believe that's the leading theory. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the one that most find to be the most credible. Zenaida also displayed numerous abrasions and bruises, particularly on her face and hands. She bore a jagged wound with missing skin on the back of her right hand, near the base of her 3rd finger, and a long red bruise measuring 29 by 6 centimeters. It was evident on the right side of her waist, prompting speculation that it may have been caused by a baton. Her cause of death was attributed to hypothermia resulting from a violent accident.
See, again, the injuries are just so inconsistent with one another. A giant,
an even bruise across the hip is weird, Yeah.
It's just all of these abrasions and bruises and all of that. It just doesn't make sense for the situation that they found themselves in, unless they were fighting one another or fighting a bear, I guess.
They were fist fighting a bear, boxing, throwing hands and stuff.
I don't mean to get ahead, but I do, if I remember correctly, one of the bodies was chewed up and all of that, which leads to a bear theory.
Yeah. Well, also, if they were out here for a week, right? An animal could have came by later, chewed them up.
Yeah, that's true.
Could have been doesn't necessarily mean it's the cause. Yeah.
On March 5th, Rustam Slobodin was discovered approximately 480 meters from the cedar tree, found face down, oriented towards the tent, covered in 50 centimeters of snow. Rustam appeared to be better dressed compared to his previously discovered bodies. His attire included a long-sleeve undershirt, regular shirt, sweater, 2 pairs of pants, 4 pairs of socks, and 1 felt Valinka boot on his right foot. He wore a watch that stopped at 8:45 a.m. Among his belongings were 310 rubles, his passport, 2 shoe insoles tucked into his sweater, small folding pocket knife, pencil, pen, comb, box of matches, and 1 cotton sock. So he had a lot on him. He had a ton of stuff on him.
He should have put the cotton sock somewhere, like maybe over his hand or something like that. Maybe
that was his idea, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it's just such an eclectic mix of equipment that they all ended up having at the end. It's so strange. And again, one boot, and two shoe insoles tucked under his sweater as well.
Yeah. Slobodin's injuries were predominantly concentrated on his face and hands, featuring abrasions and bruises, some of which, similarly to Dyatlov, mirrored the patterns often associated with hand-to-hand combat. He had swelling on both sides of his face, traces of blood discharged from his nose, and a fracture of the frontal bone of his skull was identified during forensic examination. Forensic pathologist Boris suggested that his skull fracture may have been caused by a blunt object. Medical assessments also indicated that the possibility Slobodin experienced a loss of coordination due to shock following a blow, potentially speeding up his death to hypothermia.
Yeah, so, okay, let's operate under the assumption that an avalanche did occur. I guess the force from an avalanche could be consistent with those kinds of injuries and bruising, because it's basically being hit by a blunt object, right? If you're hit with that much snow at that much force.
Or, I mean, there's a lot of debris in avalanches too. Could have got hit by like a limb or something.
Yeah, tree branches and stuff being carried down.
We'll probably get into it eventually, but like with an avalanche, if an avalanche did occur and that's what instigated the whole scenario, I would have assumed they would just be buried instead of just impacted.
Issue, right? Like why? But like a lot of the stuff was buried, like a few of the bodies in the tent and stuff like that. But why were some of them just above? What could have happened is there was an avalanche that made them all run away, and then they can't get back to their gear because it's under the snow now.
I guess that's possible, but wasn't the equipment found above the snow eventually?
The tent wasn't, right? They said it was under snow and they had to recover it.
Oh,
and some
right,
of the equipment was above. And it also been a week, so some of it could have like melted or evened out since then or something like that. Yeah, true. But in the middle of the night, they probably couldn't find it.
Yeah, I don't think they would have found their tent and stuff in the middle of the night anyway. Yeah. Even if it was an avalanche.
This is the second time someone has injuries consistent with hand-to-hand combat. I feel like that has to just be a mistake at the time. That doesn't make any sense under these circumstances. Like, assuming, like, they panic, they run from the tent, I don't see them going, like, fucking fisticuffs like pugilists and settling their differences like that. Like, I don't think they started fighting each other. At least not, like, a physical hand-to-hand fight.
Well, if, just theoretically, like, if these two, not to insult the dead, but if these two were, they were afraid they were going to starve to death, freeze to death, something like that, there could have been a fight. Someone's like, we should stay here. No, we should go. They start yelling. Maybe they do get into a quick fight. I don't think they killed each other, but maybe a few punches or something, right?
I think it's also important to add at this point that I think half of them were intoxicated.
Oh, they were drunk?
Yeah, I think a few of them were drunk. Or at least the reports say intoxication.
That might lead into it a little bit.
That would explain a little more if there was like a fight or something that broke out.
But we're talking about post accident. What if the fight occurred beforehand as well? We don't know the events leading up to the accident.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it could have happened before they ever even needed to hustle out of the tent.
Oh yeah, because they've been drinking and partying all night.
They've been drinking the night before. Yeah.
Then an avalanche shows up. So yeah, they could have got to a fight, hours before they had to ditch.
Yeah, we don't know that it's necessarily caused by the incident that led to the end.
Yeah.
The presence of an icy bed beneath Slobodin's body, formed from the hardening of thawing snow, suggested that his body retained some warmth at the time of his fall. While bruises and scratches were attributed to last-minute agony, uncertainty surrounds how he sustained injuries to his exposed hands and legs. In the cases of Doroshenko, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, liver mortis spots were detected on the upper surfaces of their bodies, leading to speculation that their bodies may have been turned over post-mortem. However, some interpretations suggest that Vazradini may have mistaken frostbite erythema for livor mortis.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I guess they're calling into question the coroner's report there. It could be livor mortis or it could be frostbite arrhythmia. Either way, there's the question there of were these bodies, turned over and looted, maybe potentially. And the two bodies by the cedar tree they also had those same they were found in that same situation where the question was, were they turned over after they had died? So a lot of the bodies have that.
Interesting. Okay.
The din provided shelter from the cold winds, constructed with cedar branches to minimize contact with the snow, effectively creating a makeshift bed. The manner in which they were found suggests a rational attempt at survival, with efforts made to preserve themselves and endure the ordeal.
Yeah, can you read this one? You skipped over that one.
Oh, you're right. Whoops. Yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes more sense.
What search efforts? Answer the question.
Search efforts persisted for 2 months until May 5th. A Mansi native, accompanied by his dog, stumbled upon a peculiar trail marked by cut branches. Following this trail for 50 meters, they came across torn clothing. This area had been previously searched, but the heavy snowfall had obscured the evidence. Here, in a makeshift inn nestled within a ravine, the bodies of the remaining 4 hikers were discovered.
Yeah.
So that's the den I just went ahead on.
Yeah, so there were 4 survivors that actually were cognizant enough and okay enough to create a makeshift den from branches and stuff like that to try to wait out the storm or whatever.
Whew, man.
That's terrifying.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that there were 4. This shows how long it's been since I've looked at, but I'd forgotten at least that there were 4 far enough away that it looks like they had set up some kind of shelter, which certainly implies they cannot get back to the tents. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They didn't know what direction to go in or anything like that, I'm assuming.
Ludmila was discovered on her knees, her face and her chest pressed against a rock. She was wearing multiple layers of clothing, including a short sleeve shirt, long sleeve shirt, 2 sweaters, one of which belonged to Krivichenko, and later tested positive for radiation. Underwear, long socks, 2 pairs of pants, the outer layer damaged by fire and torn, a hat, and 2 pairs of warm socks. It appears that Ludmila had torn one of the sweaters and cut it into 2 pieces in an attempt to protect her feet from freezing, with one piece wrapped around her left foot while the other half was found discarded in the snow. Soft tissue was notably absent around her eyes, eyebrows, nose ridge, and left cheekbone, leaving these areas partially exposed, and her eyeballs, tongue, and upper lip skin were missing. Ludmila also sustained multiple broken ribs and exhibited hemorrhaging in the right atrium of her heart.
So there's an interesting... There's a lot of people ran wild with this one in particular, with Ludmila, about her tongue, because the coroner's report says the tongue was missing. People obviously took that to mean it was removed, like it was cut out. She was silenced effectively, and then they take that in a conspiratorial direction, believing that it was torn out. That's not what I understand the coroner's report to actually say. It just says it was missing, which I feel like if it was torn out, there would be some level of abrasion or something like that, some level of evidence that the coroner could point to say that it was removed. Whereas when he says missing, I assume it to mean from something like decomposition or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's much more likely.
Yeah. And we got to remember at this point, the bodies were there for a few months, I think.
Yeah. Birds pluck out her eyes, something like that. Yeah.
I think it's just way more likely that they just decomposed.
Decomp to that degree. Yeah.
We already have that soft tissue decomposition around her eyes, eyebrows, nose bridge, and left cheekbone, stuff like that. And I think in that situation, the eyeballs and the tongue would probably be some of the first to go.
The heart hemorrhaging's interesting, though. Unless I'm not aware of it. It might be, but unless that's a symptom of late stage hypothermia, what kind of trauma would she have experienced that caused heart bleed?
A significant force, I would think.
Yeah.
And she also suffered multiple broken ribs, which indicates to me force as well. So she was hit pretty hard by something, I would think, which could explain that.
It sounds like a car crash injury. That's wild.
It really does, yeah. Which again, Avalanche maybe.
Yeah, could be.
Alexander Kolvator and Simeon Zolotaryov were discovered embracing each other, presumably in an effort to conserve body heat. Zolotaryov was found adorned in layers of clothing including 2 hats, a scarf, long-sleeve shirt, black sweater, coat, underwear, 2 pairs of pants, and skiing pants. Additionally, he carried a copy of the newspaper, coins, and a compass. He also wore socks and a pair of handmade leather shoes. He also had a camera hanging around his neck, although the film was damaged by melting snow, prompting questions about why he carried the camera during the initial departure from the tent. He was also clutching a pen and paper in his hands.
Damn, if only he wrote what happened. That would be so fucking helpful.
If only we could get photos from that camera, dude.
Yeah, he was definitely taking photos at the end to document, no doubt.
You reckon?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. He has the camera around his neck. He's got a pen and paper. Yeah.
There are some photos that were recovered from the film, from the camera, from Zolotaryov's camera that we'll get into eventually. But most of them are obviously degraded.
I imagine the more recent photos were the ones that were degraded, and the ones that survived were the earlier ones, considering how film would be wrapped around itself.
True, yeah.
Zolotaryov's injuries included missing eyeballs and soft tissue around his left eyebrow. He also suffered from multiple broken ribs and an open wound on the right side of his skull, exposing bone.
Ouch.
This is just another brutal one.
Enough force to show bone.
And I assume they know the difference between, like you said, pre and post mortem. So, man, gosh, that's brutal. It always gets me whenever I hear about 2 people dying in each other's arms. It's so tragic, man.
I'll take these next 2 quotes and then you can continue on. So these quotes are from the forensic investigator Boris Vozrozdeny, who was interviewed about this situation, the case. So this question is, how is it possible to explain the cause of the damage to Dubinia and Zolotaryov? Is it possible to combine them into one cause? And Boris replies saying, I think the character of the wounds on Dubinia and Zolotaryov, a multiple fracture of the ribs on Dubinia were bilateral and symmetrical, and on Zolotaryov were one-sided. Both had hemorrhaging into the cardiac muscle with hemorrhaging into the pleural cavity, which is evidence of them being alive when injured. These wounds, especially appearing in such a way without any damage to the soft tissue of the chest, are very similar to the type of trauma that results from the shock wave of a bomb, which is that's a lot of force for him to directly be like, these guys might have been bombed. Like that's probably like the most apt explanation that this guy can come up with. Basically,
that would explain a lot of the injuries away, especially all the hand bruising and tearing. Yeah. You hold your hands up to cover your face or something.
It's not inconceivable to me, especially with like military bases and stuff like that in the area. I'm assuming.
What are the chances they blew up something in the fire? Because most of the carnage was around that, right? The fire that was found.
That was near the cedar tree. Yeah, that wouldn't have been it.
You're right. That wasn't near the. Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, I think if it was some kind of bomb, that would have been the main impetus of the events in the first place, not something that happened later on once they had left.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So this next question is, how long could Dubinia and Zolotaryov have lived? And Boris, the forensic investigator, replies, Dubinia died 10 to 20 minutes after the trauma. Wow. So, yeah, well, she could have been conscious. Sometimes it happens that a person with a wound to the heart, for example, a serious knife wound, can talk, run, and ask for help. Dubinia's situation was one of complicated traumatic shock, resulting from the bilateral rib fracture with subsequent internal hemorrhaging into the pleural cavity. Zolotaryov could have lived longer. It needs to be taken into account that they were all trained, physically fit, and strong people. So the forensic investigators, like her injuries are consistent with someone who probably died pretty quickly after the events. So she was one of the ones that was found though in that kind of makeshift, cabin or whatever it was, makeshift shelter.
Dubinia was in the makeshift shelter.
Oh wait, no, she wasn't, was she? She was.
Yeah, no, she was. She was. It's Ludmila.
She was the one who was leaned up with her tongue removed, and everyone thought that meant, that was her. So she wait, hold on. If she only lived 10 to 20 minutes after the heart injury,
how did they have time to set that shit up?
Maybe they set it up and then brought her body in.
That's possible. It also could have been.
Yeah, I guess.
It also could have been maybe this. I don't know what series of events would have led to this, but I mean that goes for the whole case. They get away from the tent site. They go set up the shelter, and then after the shelter set up, she receives the injury to her heart. But I have no idea what that could have been, right? Unless someone was like physically hunting them through the woods or something.
Yeah, I just don't see that being as likely as her receiving the injury in the first place that, gave everyone else
They said
injuries.
They found her on her knees, right? Like leaned up against a rock. That's a weird way to like set up your friend. Like your friend's dead, you bring her body back and you're like, here, it's like you're talking with us. Just lean up against that, yeah.
Well, no, it says Lyudmila was discovered on her knees, her face and chest pressed against a rock, which to me, that doesn't sound like a natural position for her to put herself in.
Unless she was like winced over in pain or something.
Yeah. Again, she bled out in like 10 minutes, according to the
the forensic investigator says that she likely died 10 to 20 minutes after the trauma itself. We don't know when that trauma happened.
You can't bleed out of your heart for like days, right? It's pretty serious injury.
He does say that she could have been conscious after the trauma.
Like after she got hit in the heart, maybe she had 10 to 20 minutes to be awake, and then she dies, Because otherwise, you get hit like that, you're knocked out, and then you die after you're knocked out,
God, this case is so, like, complex in terms of all these different moving pieces.
What would have blown up? Because now I'm saying, bomb sounds like it, because that explains a lot of the burns and the cuts and stuff like that. But what would have blown up? One of them like, oh, cool, I brought this bomb, guys, let's throw it in the campfire,
Okay, so there's an element, I highly recommend people in the audience check out Lemino's video. I remember that his main hypothesis or theory was that the tent had a stove inside.
Yep, I remember that.
What if the stove blew up?
Oh, those things, those little pressurized metal ones used to do that if you didn't like air it out properly.
Lemino's main theory, and I'm sorry to the audience that this is just the course of a natural conversation. I would have liked to talk about the theories all up at the end once we got through the end, but it's just more engaging for us this way, I guess. Lemino's main theory is that a fire was caused in the tent from their makeshift stove thing, and then they left. But as we're discovering right now, a lot of these injuries are more consistent with what we would think would be some kind of explosion.
It would depend on what kind of stove it was, too, right?
Yeah. What if the stove exploded, though? That would kind of give the best of both sides, right?
It would, but how would it be an explosion? Like, if it's a little portable stove, I don't think it'd be an explosion big enough to injure all 10 of them at once, right?
Well, so I just went to his video to skim through his conclusion. Another thing is he was talking about, like, the smoke inhalation and stuff like that. Like, it's a lot more than just, like, the blast. It's just everything that came after.
Right. I guess. I wonder if... I don't know. Let's keep reading. Let's see more injuries and stuff.
So Alexander Kolvatov was discovered wearing a sleeveless shirt, long sleeve shirt, sweater, fleece sweater, and badly damaged ski jacket with a burnt hole on the left side. His jeans were unbuttoned, unzipped, and he wore shorts and 2 pairs of pants. He lacked shoes, but he wore knitted wool socks with an additional sock on the right foot and 3 on the left. Among his belongings were a key, safety pin, blank paper, and 2 packets of pills. Furthermore, the waistband of his sweater and the lower parts of his trousers tested positive for radioactivity. His eyebrows were missing, skull exposed, and he had an open wound behind his ear, a deformed neck, bleeding behind the left knee, and macerated fingers and feet. His skin was tinged a gray-green purple.
Okay. That's the first time I was going to let the radiation thing go. Because I thought maybe it was like, well, one of them worked at a nuclear plant. Maybe that's what they mean. But what is the second mention of his clothes were radioactive?
I mean, all things are radioactive.
Everything's
to some
radioactive,
degree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not what they're testing for.
I know, right? But I don't. I don't think we know specifically how radioactive they are. But it's enough to make a note of. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably not pertinent to what happened here.
Yeah, I guess. They just
it was the Soviet Union.
Yeah, you're right.
It was the Soviet Union during the 50s, and
I got these clothes from Chernobyl. Yeah.
Yeah. They have a habit of reactors exploding and stuff like that, so who knows.
Yeah, sure. All right.
And then the final hiker, Nikolai, was enveloped in multiple layers of warm clothing, including sheepskin fur jackets, and additionally he donned a pair of felt Vinlinky boots. In his right pocket, wool gloves were tucked alongside coins, a comb, and pieces of paper. He wore 2 watches, one that stopped at 8:14 and the other ceased at 8:39. His examination revealed multiple fractures to his temporal bone, bruises on his upper lip, and hemorrhaging on his lower forearm. The original investigation concluded that the hiker's deaths were due to compelling natural force.
Thank you, investigators. Very insightful. Why didn't I think of that?
I think they thought probably an avalanche or something similar to that was probably the most likely scenario here.
The word compelling is so funny. Like it beat them to death and cut them up and froze them. It's like quite compelling, really.
You're like, this is really interesting, actually.
Very persuasive. I thought I was also laughing during Charlie's reading of that because when it says tucked in his pocket was coins, a comb, and pieces of paper, I thought it said coins, a bomb, and pieces of paper.
Just a pack of C4.
Yeah, we just cracked the case right there. No one bothered to read that.
The medical examiner looks over his own notes. How could I have been a fool? So blind.
One of the bodies was discovered with about 20 sticks of dynamite for some reason.
We're now meeting the 10th unnamed traveler. He was old Dynamite Terry. He just loved eating dynamite and setting on fires. So maybe
All right, so let's now go over some of the most popular theories. Even though the whole burning down, like the fire or the stovetop thing, is not included here in the theories, we're going to talk about that eventually because I think that's my favorite theory as well. But let's go over some of the other theories that people have been talking about the most. One of the biggest ones is military testing. So some speculate that the hikers inadvertently stumbled upon a military testing area. Local accounts mention sightings of flashes of light or moving balls of fire emanating from the direction of the mountains. And in 2008, a 3-foot-long piece of metal was discovered in the vicinity and acquired by the Dyatlov Foundation. Analysis revealed it to be a part of a Soviet ballistic missile. So that's... Hey.
I don't think that's really compelling evidence of anything, though, because it's 2008. That could have been at any point after.
It could have been, yeah. It could have been between 70 years, yeah.
What are you giggling about? They may have been hit by a predator drone and you're laughing about that?
It's not funny, but why? It's like, why on earth would the USSR target like 9 kids with a ballistic missile?
They were too experienced at hiking.
The implication was it was an accident, but I do like the idea that they're just getting up their kill streak.
It's the most extreme use of force ever. You're just around the campfire getting drunk with your boys, and then a predator missile just flies in. Like, there's no tactical precedence for that. There's no way to prepare. That's just...
Hey, they were getting closer, though. They were hiking in the military base's direction, maybe. Who knows?
Oh my gosh. The idea, I mean, I guess it is possible that maybe the Russians were just doing weapon testing, like, let's fire a missile into this random mountainside. It's like, oops, there were hikers on it, right? I guess that's possible. Because that's also my theory with the similar event.
How unlucky!
But how unlucky! Your tent is where the random missile goes to. And that would also explain the avalanche that ensued afterwards, right?
Yeah. Although, if it was a ballistic missile, surely they would have been able to tell that from the...
Well, they also would have, as you mentioned here, there would have been a lot more evidence of that kind of shit happening, as opposed to a rogue piece of metal from 2008.
Correct. And like ballistic missiles, like sure, back in like the 50s, 60s, it wasn't like it is today. You just kind of pick a spot and send a rocket, right? And they were testing a lot of those. They did fire them a lot because the technology was new at the time. But maybe if like everything was buried in snow, like maybe the missile caused a big avalanche, right? And that's what led to some of the damage we saw. So a lot of the evidence of it was covered up, maybe. But gosh, just the concept of like bad luck, Larry. You camp out right in the missile testing ground. Like,
I think if the missile actually hit anywhere near them as well, they would have just been killed.
Dead. Right, well, you would think
it couldn't have been. Yeah, it couldn't have been on them because they'd be dead. But if it was like say 100 feet away, that would explain the injuries,
the force of the shockwave. Yeah. And there's a note here: the presence of radioactivity on the hiker's clothing potentially supports this theory as well. I guess you can get radioactive.
They weren't firing. they weren't firing nukes at them.
It was just a mini nuke.
They were shooting like fat boys at him. Yeah. It's like the Fallout 4 VAT system. They just like lock onto him up a mountainside. Oh gosh.
However, like Charlie said, the absence of any other individuals or evidence of equipment at the site raises doubts about this explanation. It would be pretty difficult to completely conceal all traces of people and machinery involved in this. Additionally, the scattered distribution of the bodies across the landscape, including some found in a makeshift den, cast pretty severe uncertainty on this theory. I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 10.
I'll give it a bit. I'll give it a bit higher because maybe I don't think it hit them directly, but maybe it hit nearby, injured some of them or something like that. I'll give it like a 5 or something like that. It was also very funny how when I started laughing, Charlie was like my dad. It was like, what? What's so funny? Why are you laughing at them?
I think what happened here is a tragedy.
These kids were hit by a ballistic missile and you're laughing.
You got to find the humor in these situations, I think, wherever it can be found.
Speaking of humor, do you want me to take the next one?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So some theories suggest that a UFO encounter instilled so much fear in the hikers that they abandoned their tent and hesitated to return. Reports of peculiar orbs in the sky emerged, with both rescue and military search teams purportedly witnessing similar phenomena multiple times during their efforts. Even geologists working 70 meters from the tragedy site claim to have observed similar sights. Although these accounts were subsequently omitted from official records, they persist in reports. So this image that's here, I know that it's here because it's like a evidence, so to speak, or leaning towards the idea of a UFO. This is one of the most interesting pictures I think I've ever seen. Because you have a group of people who their disappearance is such a thing of mystery, right? And then you go through the camera of one of their survivors, and one of the only surviving pieces of evidence is a blurred, broken picture of some kind of light, right? Most likely a fire. But what, if we had this picture in better quality, it could provide so many explanations, right? But instead, we just have to guess off of what it is. That is terrifying. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, I don't think it's UFO lights. I'll tell you that much.
No, of course not. Of course not. But it's interesting.
Yeah, it's probably a ghost.
It's like we have the evidence, but someone drew over it, right? Like we're holding the map in our hand, but it's been scratched out. It's so interesting.
Same with any other of his pictures that he probably took that night. I wish he had wrote something down at least. I wish one of them had wrote something down with all the paper and
let's just assume that the stove theory is the correct one, which after skimming through the Lumino video again, like it seems like that's a lot more watertight than I remembered it being, more so than like the avalanche theory. But let's assume that's real. What is he gonna write down? Like, fuck, the stove exploded. Like, what do you like? I don't think that'd be one of the first things he'd think to state.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would if I was in that situation.
Really?
And I was like, if I had a pen and a paper, I would write an intro story to my eventual Red Thread episode. I would.
Oh, I see. To whom it may concern, we're sitting around a fire. We're cooking up a great steak. Bang. Pain hurts.
I look at the reflection in the stovetop. I see Jeffrey Epstein. I would.
You're in a tent. The stove explodes. You're also Epstein. This is the Red Thread. I'm your host. Welcome.
Brought to you by our sponsors. I would absolutely, like, if I knew I was gonna die, I would want to leave answers for my family and stuff. And if I had a pen and paper, I'm just passing time, I guess I would.
Well, keep in mind, they're also
in the dark
drunk too. Yeah, it's in the dark. It's drunk. They're probably also confused. They may have thought they actually did get bombed. Like, they may not know it was the stove that exploded.
That would also explain why they blew it up if they were drunk and no one was watching the stove.
Yeah.
But one of them did die with pen and paper in their hands, so maybe in his final moments he was trying to. Man, that's tragic. Even if he wasn't trying to write the events of what happened, maybe if he was just trying to write, like, I'm sorry, Mom,
but he couldn't,
or whatever, but he couldn't. Dude.
Because of frostbite, yeah.
A frostbite, maybe the pen didn't work, it's too cold out there or something, who knows, but...
Oh yeah, how do pens work in the cold? Can they do that? Do you need, like, astronauts' pens?
What in the fuck? Why would you need an astronaut's pen?
I don't know, maybe the cold's similar to space.
I think he means like a sealed pen. I don't think he means literally one that was like in space.
No, so I meant like a pen designed for this specific situation of working in the cold. Like how astronauts have pens that are designed specifically to work in space.
I just don't think you could do that with a pen, like in that kind of temperature. Like if you've got it to the point where it's like frostbite temperature, the ink will just freeze, and I doubt it'll work. You need like a pencil.
Yeah.
Just bring a pencil.
Man, imagine having the pen and paper and you can't write. Isn't that... Gosh, that's sad.
Or just pull up your phone and like go into the notes app and then write it down there.
Yeah, there you are. Now we're
did we recover their iPhones? Where's that forensics evidence?
Check their Find My iPhone. Maybe that'll help us find them quicker. Yeah.
Damn it, they were just a few decades too early.
Everyone be quiet. I'm trying to listen to hear the phone vibrate. All right.
The photo itself is basically just like a black picture with a few like
that's so frustrating and so cool
orbs.
at the same time. So much mystery to that, man.
Yeah, it is. But it reminds me of, instead of UFOs, it really does remind me of those, like, you know, the ghost videos from like Ghost Adventures and stuff like that, where they capture orbs. Yeah, they capture ghost orbs on the camera, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's a ghost! It's the ghost of a 130-year-old nun or something." And they come up with some really cool stories.
What it likely is that
it's just dust. It's probably just dust, or just dust, a dust speck.
I mean, yeah, but it could also be like the camera was out of focus and he was trying to take a picture of... What this picture probably is just them around a fire or something before, you know, anything went wrong. But man, it's so interesting.
It is. All right, so the next one is hypothermia or paradoxical undressing. So paradoxical undressing is a phenomenon observed in up to half of hypothermia-related deaths, involves victims removing their coats, sweaters, and trousers before succumbing to cold temperatures. As the body cools, vasoconstriction occurs, causing blood vessels to narrow and redirect blood away from the body's periphery to maintain core temperature. This can lead to a loss of mental clarity, with the victim perceiving a false sensation of warmth on their skin and consequently feeling overheated, prompting them to disrobe. Which doesn't... this one's not really... relative, really, because they were all fully clothed. Like, they had a lot of clothes on.
They were trying to clothe at least, yeah.
Yeah, many of the hikers were found in varying stages of undress, leading to speculation that they may have experienced paradoxical undressing. However, this raises the perplexing question of how they initially found themselves in such a vulnerable state. So I guess it's just an explanation of why they died of hypothermia.
So paradoxical undressing is commonly observed with hypothermia cases, but it takes like 2 weeks. Maybe not 2 weeks. Like, it takes a few days at least. Because, like, every time that happens, it's someone who's been in the cold for, like, days on end. And they get so cold that what happens is your body gets, like, this final burst of adrenaline, like, right before death. And you, like, become this kind of, like, you know, meandering madman almost. So if someone's out there for weeks trying to fight the cold, and then they rip off all their clothes and die. So that doesn't happen in, like, 20 minutes or anything.
Yeah. This one... It doesn't even explain why they would get into this situation in the first place. Like, obviously, they probably only got hypothermia after they left the tent in the initial stage. Doesn't explain much there. But another thing that could potentially explain why they left the tent is Arctic hysteria, also known as piblok-tok, which encompasses a wide range of behaviors including disorientation, time loss, insensitivity to cold weather, trance-like walking, aggression, and amnesia, among others. It is commonly observed in Arctic regions, particularly among Inuit women. While the exact cause remains elusive, some researchers attribute piblok-tok to the extreme cold temperatures and prolonged darkness prevalent in these Arctic areas. So kind of like a mild form of hysteria, like just generalized.
Well, not mild at all.
Yeah, a full case
It's
of
a very
hysteria.
slight case of hysteria. Yeah.
Just a little bit of hysteria,
Yeah,
but hysteria,
just a little wonky.
hysteria
a little weird.
born from being in the Arctic region. So the footsteps leading away from the tent were described as being calm, like just normal footsteps that led away from the tents, which I guess could be a sign of trance-like walking, maybe?
Yeah, but not like, it's not like they went crazy. Also, the other issue with this, Arctic hysteria primarily seen among Inuit women. Okay, that means people who have been out in the cold for days and weeks of like being cold before they got to this point, right? So you've got that versus all these people got injured in the span of like a few minutes, ran from their tent. Again, same as the paradoxical undressing. It's not like they were out there long enough to undergo that. You can maybe argue that with the people who got away and built a den, but not the people who died face down 20 feet away from the tent.
What if, though, like some form of hysteria took over in the initial circumstances, and that's what caused like the main explosion or the main burning down of the tent from the stove? Like maybe someone just started like beating the shit out of the stove and causing it to like create the fire. Maybe
I don't
either
think
drunkenly
they would,
or
I don't. Well, they were on
hysterical?
a hike, so I don't think they were out long enough. Okay, so if that were the case, if they got out there and then they started getting cold for like, a day or more, and they started to lose their minds, get hysteric, I don't think they build a tent. I don't think they keep track of their watches, and they don't do everything they're supposed to, and then like mess with the stove. It sounds more like an event happens and then they die from more immediate injuries rather than slow death to the elements.
Yeah.
I mean, they died to the elements, but not slowly, right?
Yeah. Especially with the situations like where her heart was damaged so much that she died within 20 minutes.
Yeah. Like, so if we have an injury like that, there's no way these people died of several days of exposure.
Yeah. All right. So, Charlie, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so this, I even Googled it just now because I was curious. This one's the Yeti theory. So one of the final photo taken on Theobald Brignol's camera, that's Nikolai, there's a dark figure that's seen advancing through the forest, and many believe it's a Yeti. And the group had been joking about the Yeti before they died. And looking at the pictures, these are the photos, like these are the real photos?
I think so, yeah.
There's no, I don't think so.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
there's absolutely
they're definitely
no
not
way.
the real photos, Jackson. There's no shot.
Maybe
if this is
trick.
the real photo, I am going to become a Yeti truther for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also
like
be like,
Bigfoot.
that's definitely the fucking Yeti.
That is the most Yeti image I've ever seen in my life.
It could just be another camper.
No, what? That naked man crawling with his arms hunched over like that? That's just another camper? Oh my gosh.
okay.
Okay, hold on. I'm looking at
It is real. Yeah, it is definitely real.
Yeah, it looks like it is.
Photo.
Nuh-uh.
But so this source says this was during the hike, likely another hiker. So
Shut
it
up.
was like
No, it's not. That's the Yeti.
I don't know. That
is
definitely
the
does
Yeti.
look like a fucking Yeti.
Bro, that is the Yeti. The one. What are you talking about?
the most compelling evidence here is just a footnote about a
That is the most Yeti.
forget
seen-
the rest
I don't-
of this episode. It's the Yeti. The Yeti did
It's
it.
the most Yeti
I've
thing
changed
I've
my
ever
stance
seen.
entirely.
I am following a different religion now. I'm a different person entirely.
Okay,
This
so
is
let's pretend that this is the Yeti.
Yeah, what do you mean pretend?
We don't need to pretend.
They saw it in the hike leading up to this situation. Why would they then comfortably like settle down in their tents and just start drinking alcohol and stuff like that? If this was the Yeti.
Well, I mean, what are you gonna do?
Wow, that's a good point.
Like you see the Yeti, and you take a picture. I mean,
Why
is
did
it
you
like,
say
all
that
right, well, we have to
sarcastically
go
then?
home now.
Why is it
Like,
not a good point?
No. That wasn't sarcastic. I was like, no, that's actually a really good point.
And I'm the one fighting you, saying, even if you do see a Yeti like 5 days into the trip, I mean, depending on how far they were, it could have been quicker to keep going, to finish the trek, right, than to turn around. So, like, you get the picture, what are you going to do? You still have to survive the rest of the trip out there.
Yeah, but you've got copious amounts of paper and pens, and now you're in the comfort of your tent by a fire.
I'm sorry, Jackson. I thought the pens didn't work. I thought the pens didn't work. I thought that's the whole thing we did.
No, I'll give you that they might not work outside in the, biting cold and stuff like that, but I'm assuming they would work next to like the stovetop inside.
You know what happens? You know what happens if we go out into the woods and I get a picture of Bigfoot? I'm not writing down anything. We're getting hammered around the campfire. Okay, that is the only means of recourse we have. Okay, because I'm having an existential crisis. I'm a different person at that point. Like,
I want this to be the Yeti.
I think it's the Yeti, gentlemen.
It's the Yeti.
I think the Yeti got rambunctious and caused the ruckus.
Why does every video I see... I have seen so many videos of the Dyatlov Pass, I've never seen that picture before. Why do people not think...
are like, it's clearly a hiker.
It's clearly the Yeti. I'm being gaslit right now by the entirety of YouTube. That is a Yeti. What are you talking about?
What's a hiker going to look like, though? It doesn't... Like, that Yeti doesn't even look that big. And aren't Yetis white?
No. This is where you're exposing your lack of Yeti knowledge. They can come in brown, red, or white, depending on the region. They're a race of people that exist among the mountains.
If that's a hiker, where's his backpack, by the way?
He's facing the camera. It's just all shrouded.
Oh, fuck. Wait, you're right.
He's gonna wear his backpack.
Don't win Charlie back over. Don't win Charlie back over. This is the most clear... Don't let the backpack take you away, Charlie. This is the most clear evidence of a Yeti I've ever seen in my life.
Really zoom into the photo and look. Those look like trousers to me, not like fur.
Yeah, it looks like you're pants. Absolutely right. That's 100. Shit. Damn it! I'm back on the side of logic.
No, that is absolutely. Look how he's holding his hands. He's literally doing the stereotypical Bigfoot pose.
Yeah, he's right. I'm on the Yeti train now. he's in Yeti pose mode.
Shut up. You're being sarcastic. That is the most... I believe in the Yeti now. It was a joke before, but I mean it this time. Like,
there's a second photo there, and I looked at it for as long as I could where the arrows were pointing at it, and I can't see the Yeti that it's apparently making out. Also, audio listeners, this is all on screen on video if you want to check it out, or just open the document. Not while you're driving, though. If you're audio listening on your commute, don't look at these
unless
documents.
You want to look at the Yeti because it's really important right now. So
it's pretty important.
I feel this has to be fake. This has to.
I don't
be
like.
fake.
It's not fake. It's real. It's real. I don't want to like shit on the idea of it being a Yeti because it is fun, and I would like it to be a Yeti. I just don't. I don't see it specifically there when you zoom in.
Well, let's go on to the ones that don't have as much compelling evidence as the Yeti, such as Cold War spies.
Okay.
So, during the Cold War era, operating as American and European spies within the Soviet Union presented numerous challenges. Foreigners faced heightened suspicion from local authorities, compelling many spies to rely on illicit networks for information gathering. Western intelligence agencies often recruited Russian citizens to extract sensitive data. A theory posits that certain members of the hiking group were enlisted by the KGB to transport fabricated evidence, such as clothing contaminated with radioactivity, to another agent. The two mainly believed to be involved were Semyon Zolotarov and Yuri Krivonchenko. The Krivoshenko's background working in a nuclear facility potentially made him a target for recruitment. Zolotaryov, with his military experience, including involvement in a risky engineering unit, may have served as backup. Suspicion arises from the presence of radioactive clothing, as it seems unlikely that Krivonchenko would retain garments from his prior nuclear cleanup duties. The scenario suggests that Western operatives would rendezvous with the hikers along the route, posing as tourists to receive the radioactive items. However, something presumably went wrong, leading the agents to assault the group. This theory faces significant scrutiny. Questions arise about the risk of exposing undercover operatives to unknown individuals and the choice of bludgeoning over firearms when hunting rifles were legally available. Also, the extensive injuries inflicted on the hikers appear inconsistent with typical human-on-human violence, as suggested by forensic experts. Yeah, I think that one's a load of malarkey. I think that's just hooey.
Yeah, I think it's just born from the era, really. Like, spies were big at the time. So you wanna see it.
Yeah. Then the next one's the real big logical one.
The big one.
The stove.
It better be the Yeti again in that case.
Well, it's the avalanche, which could have been caused by the Yeti.
Yeah, the Yeti's just
Yeti avalanche.
The Yeti. Yeah, we can't rule out that like these are all like the avalanche and the
You're
Yeti
mocking me.
Potentially.
You're mocking me.
No, I'm
right
not.
Now, Jackson, and I
I'm
don't
not.
appreciate it.
I would like to believe.
They could coexist. The Yeti was a KGB agent, and after the nuclear
now you're definitely mocking me. You are.
He's mocking you. He's absolutely mocking me. I'm not.
I am. You know what? Maybe the Yeti didn't even have anything to do with their deaths. Maybe they just died after seeing a Yeti by complete coincidence. But that picture was
he was
a
just
Yeti.
A whimsical traveler.
Howdy-o, neighbor.
Imagine that. Imagine fucking you spot the Yeti on your little hike, and then you get hit by a ballistic missile that night.
They were so excited they got this great evidence of the Yeti, irrefutable. Only to get bombed.
Maybe that's why they got bombed. Maybe that's why they got bombed. They're like, the KGB's like, holy shit, they saw the Yeti.
It's like the chance equivalent of getting struck by lightning 8 times at once. Like you see a Yeti and then a random ballistic missile.
The fucking Yeti launched the ballistic missile. He's got some little fucking base.
Could you imagine that, like, not to make light of their final moments, but could you imagine if that's what happened? Their final moments, the guy's like, what was that? Like, what the oh my god.
Jesus Christ, the Yeti's got air-to-surface missiles.
Oh.
He's got a little military base, a little Yeti military base out in the Ural Mountains.
I will also say that as we were sitting here, I was pulling up pictures of it, and I found pictures of their bodies. For one, they're pretty brutal. But the one who had the camera around his neck, he was like he's frozen, half holding the camera. Like it's right on his neck and he's got a hand on it. So it's like he was clutching that thing for his final moments, and he took a lot of pictures that night. It looks like none of them were developed well because of the cold, but it looks like he was trying to take pictures of something, maybe each other.
Yeah, probably each other would be my guess.
Yeah.
So the avalanche theory, this is the most prevalent one. So it's conjectured that the group, disoriented by poor visibility during a snowstorm, veered further west than intended. Rather than descending to a forested area to set up camp, they chose to cut into a slope and pitch tents for the night, likely to avoid losing the altitude they had gained during the day. In 2019, the Russian Public Prosecutor's Office reopened the case from the archives, granting Johann Guam, the director of the Snow and Avalanche Simulation Laboratory in Switzerland, an opportunity to investigate the mystery. Guam concluded that an avalanche had struck the tent during the night, catching the hikers off guard while they slept. This theory also supported by Russian public prosecutors. Guam and Alexander Puzrin, a geoengineer at ETH Zurich, embarked on a further analysis by developing 2 models to reconstruct the purported avalanche event. An analytical model was utilized to estimate the time required to trigger an avalanche, while a numerical model was assessed the potential impact of the avalanches on the human body. They published their findings in January 2021, ultimately concluding the incident to a slab avalanche. This occurs when a bonded layer of snow is lying on top of a weaker layer in a large area. They can only be triggered when there is an angle of 30 degrees or more on the slope, and when there is additional load added to the top layer. It can explain why the hikers left their tent and some of the injuries that had occurred. An essential factor in this is the presence of katabatic winds. Katabatic winds are the air currents driven downhill by gravity's force. These winds have the ability to deposit snow uphill, accumulating above the tent, a crucial prerequisite for a slab avalanche. Researchers believe that the avalanche likely occurred several hours after the group had established their camp. And here's a quote from Alexander Puzrin. If they hadn't made a cut in the slope, nothing would have happened. That was the initial trigger, but that alone wouldn't have been enough. The katabatic wind probably drifted the snow and allowed an extra load to build up slowly. At a certain point, a crack could have formed and spread, causing the snow slab to release.
So when people say like avalanche, obviously you have these ideas of like these enormous like mountains worth of snow like falling down, like rushing down. My understanding is it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It can just literally be an avalanche is like a bunch of snow above the tent has just fallen, like drifted down.
One big
drifted
piece
down
of
the hill. Yeah, it drifted down the hill and then landed on the tent. It doesn't have to be this giant cataclysmic event. It's
Yeah.
because they cut into this area in the snow, and then there was like a ridge line above them of snow that has then fallen down on top of them, creating an avalanche effect.
Also, looking at pictures right now of where they pinched the tent, it looks like it's a pretty steep slope.
It definitely is on a slope, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like what's it called when it's just like mud and like dirt and stuff? Landfall? No, what's it called?
Oh, mud slides?
Mudslides? Yeah, something like that. Where like obviously some mud builds up at the top and then becomes unstable and then falls down through the slope down onto the flat area below, creating damage for like houses and stuff like that. Kind of like a similar effect, ostensibly. What I imagine here. You can continue.
So their findings attracted significant attention and interest, yet it appeared that Russia was not as enthusiastic about this research as others. The prevailing sentiment was that mysteries like this one lose their allure when explained by boring scientific reasons.
Well, then why the fuck did you go to the scientists then?
Yeah, what the fuck? Soviet authorities seemed reluctant to disclose details likely to prevent the proliferation of conspiracy theories. Johann Guam, a cross-country skier himself, recognized the potential distress this theory could cause, especially to the families of the deceased, as it implies that the hikers had inadvertently brought about their own tragedy through their actions. I guess that kind of makes sense.
I mean, I'm sure they just want answers, though, at the end of the day.
I feel like answers would be the most important. It's not like he's calling them stupid.
This is also in 2021. This happened 70 years ago. If they had children or like nephews or whatever, they're like 85. I think the 85-year-old can bear to hear, oh, well, actually, it was an avalanche. And I'm like, it's okay.
No.
You're not saying that they like ate each other or something. Like, it's a fine
there's nothing like nefarious here.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to hide the Yeti. They're trying to hide the Yeti.
Unironically, yes. Correct. What am I saying?
So there are objections to this theory. Some argue that the slope would not have been steep enough to trigger an avalanche. Additionally, the conditions were not conducive to an avalanche formation, as there was no snow cover on the slope and no wind that night, with no evidence of snow transferred by wind. Locals adamantly asserted that they had never observed any signs of an avalanche in the past. Guam and Puzren conducted further investigations, collaborating with Viktor Popovnin, a leading snow avalanche researcher at Moscow State University. Popovnin's snow measurements in winter 2019 aligned with those used by Guam and Puzren in their tests. Guam and Puzren embarked on expeditions to Dyatlov Pass, employing drones to measure slope angles above the hikers' tent site. While they detected traces that could potentially indicate an avalanche nearby, they were unable to conclusively confirm it. However, during their third expedition to the area, the winds were so strong it could turn snowmobiles. They were able to capture evidence of 2 recent snow slab avalanches at the pass, thereby corroborating their theory.
That part made me mad where it's like, they said it wasn't windy that night. Like, okay, were you there? Were you at that specific pass on the mountaintop? Shut up.
And it's not like you'd be making notes of it being windy, because I imagine that's so fucking common. It's not like you'd be writing down wind on that night,
Well, wait, aren't there like scientific, what do you call them? Like scientific instruments used to measure wind in areas?
Yeah, but they didn't have one set up in that cavern in the 1950s.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's not like you can
especially not if they were throwing ballistic missiles at it. Because isn't the evidence of that there was a piece of metal from a missile found in the region?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this wasn't an area they were had scientists out, keeping weather documents of and stuff like that.
Maybe. But also they said that there's no evidence of snow transfer by wind as well. I'm assuming that's how they would.
But then it says that the two of them went out a third time and they found evidence of 2 recent avalanches. So
this is after. So the original objections are because there was no evidence of snow transfer by wind on that night in 1950. Like once they found the site the previous day or whatever, like I'm assuming you could tell how windy a place is based on like the impact of the snow, and they didn't see any snow transfer, leading them to believe that there was no wind. But Guam and Puzren in the 2020s or whatever were able to prove that the area is capable of these kinds of snow slabs.
Yeah, I think their theory makes a ton of sense. Just to close it off, here's another quote from Puzren. The fact that the Russian scientific community accepted our findings and that our hypotheses were confirmed by recent field expeditions means a great deal to me. Not because we can confirm the exact series of events that led to this tragedy over 60 years ago, we'll never be absolutely certain what happened to the members of that group, but because it reaffirms my faith in science. For me personally, this whole experience has been about standing up for the scientific method as a valuable, reliable way of explaining natural phenomena. Which I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely a correct opinion in this situation. But it doesn't explain the Yeti, so I'm not interested.
I'm being mocked.
I'm not mocking you. No,
both of you are.
I like that kind of attitude.
All theories are accepted here.
Yeah. That's what the guy who has one theory and nothing else says. That is an out statement. That is cheating. I don't appreciate it. And also, look, I don't know if the Yeti had anything to do with their disappearance. I think the Avalanche theory is most likely, but they saw a Yeti. They absolutely could be unrelated, but they definitely saw one. Yeah,
you're all right as long as we admit that they saw a Yeti that day.
As long
as the Yeti's in the final statement.
Yes. The Yeti was there. Was it related? Probably not, but it was there when this happened.
Maybe they made friends with the Yeti on their expedition and he was there at the scene of the crime and then he just legged it out afterwards after
and then he took all the shoes. I gotta get
the way out of here.
He took all the shoes. Yeah,
he was dumb. He was a shoe thief.
Robbed them.
Yeah, he robbed. He grave robbed his friends, and maybe that's why the government shot a ballistic missile at him. They weren't targeting the hitchhikers. They were like, "Oh, there's another Yeti. Got to wipe him out."
The hitchhikers.
I'm sorry. I don't even know where that word came from. I pulled that one right out of the aether. The government, the Russian government. Why did hitchhikers were never a part of the story? Yeah. They're not even adjacent. There wasn't even a road near there.
Oh, maybe because you're thinking of hikers.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. They weren't targeting the hikers. The government was targeting the Yeti, and that's what happened. Yeah.
So what if the Yeti was like stealing their shoes or whatever while they were asleep, and then they woke up and the Yeti like freaked out, knocking over the stovetop thing, causing a fire. Yep. And then that's how the fire started, and maybe like an avalanche.
The Yeti had never seen fire before, so it freaked out.
Yeah,
I'm still getting the hints that I'm being mocked right now. I still have this itchy feeling that you're making fun of me. So I don't abide by it. I don't appreciate your tone, sir.
There's no mocking. I love it. I actually would love to believe in it. I would.
Yeah. Okay.
I like the idea that the Yeti's never seen fire, though. That's great. He's just so blown away.
This is so cool.
Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up with our personal theories, I guess. What do you guys think is the most likely?
So after going back to the Lamino video and like scrubbing through the stove theory, I really think that makes a lot of sense for like the burns and like the really big impact wounds and all of that. But like the slab avalanche theory still is very clearly super logical. It's just, I think the stove explains away a lot of those mysterious injuries that the avalanche I don't think would cause in the same way.
Okay, wait. It could be both, right? The avalanche happens, causing the stove to, be the cause of the fire and stuff like that still.
Oh, true. I guess that could they could coexist.
And it gives the kind of it leads into them having the impact force injuries still. Because my issue with the stove one was I just don't see how they got those initial like big injuries, like the big the heart injury and stuff like that just from a fire from the stove.
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean?
Like how would you get like a massive concussion injuries, blunt force trauma from a stove fire? You'd get burns.
You wouldn't get like a heart bleed from a fire.
No. But the impact from the stove exploding is what would cause it.
Yeah, but I feel like we'd see evidence of an explosion in that situation.
Not necessarily. Not if it immediately gets buried by snow. How would you even trace an explosion?
From the remains of the environment, like even if it's buried by snow, the
tent was shredded, right? So
yeah, like the tent had a bunch of like fucking holes in it.
So it was described as like knife streaks, which I guess could be torn apart from an explosion too, maybe.
Yeah, like fragments.
Oh man, yeah. So I think the most likely situation is either the avalanche or the fire, or maybe both. I don't think any other theory is quite as strong or rational as those two. I flip-flop between the both of them, and I guess it's possible that it could be a combination of them as well.
I think what happened is there was some kind of immediate impact, either that be the explosion or an avalanche. There was some event that caused a lot of serious injuries really fast, and they couldn't get back to their tent. So explosion or an avalanche or both. And then I think that, a few of the lone survivors maybe kind of trickled out from there. Maybe the two died by a tree and the girl took their shirts and then she dies to her injuries in the woods. The last four make it to a den. All of them die off one by one, and also unrelated, they saw the Yeti. So I think that's what happened.
Yeah. That was a good summation of where we all stand.
Yeah.
As each of them are dying, like they're slowly fading out, they just see the Yeti in the distance.
It's like, those old movies where there'd be like kind of like a narrator storyteller figure who's like sitting next to the characters, like, and so our heroes traveled on their journey, blah, blah, blah. So it's like you have them dying in a hole, like trying to write a message to their mom, very sad, and the camera pans over and there's just a Yeti, like with his legs crossed next to a tree. And with this ends the tale of our heroes, tragically lost to the wood. He's playing a guitar. He's playing the mandolin that got stolen from that guy.
I wonder if they found the mandolin, yeah.
No, the Yeti was playing it, duh.
All right, yeah.
Keep up, Jackson.
What do you guys think of it? Was it more interesting than you remember?
I mean, it's always been interesting, and it's still interesting, and it always will be.
Yeah, it's this is actually way more interesting than I remember, because I remember looking at it, or when I was going to make a video, being like, it just kind of looks like an avalanche. I'll do Kamar Daban. That seems more nuanced. But seeing some of the, thinking about some of the injury details of like the fist bruising and like her body propped up on a rock and stuff like that, it makes me ask a lot more questions. This may be worth a second look if I want to make a video on this. Yeah,
you should do that.
This is very fast. I mean, if nothing else, we've done it here, so that's good. But this is, very interesting. Maybe there's still new ground to tread. I like this case a lot. I mean, I don't like the people died, but I like looking at it a lot.
No, it's a very interesting, peculiar situation.
True crime YouTuber moment. I like this a lot. I'm glad this happened because it makes me entertained.
Yeah, getting into dangerous territory there. But that's going to do it for this Red Thread episode. I think we've gone over everything, and I don't think there's really much more we can add in terms of theories and stuff like that. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you very much for joining us for Red Thread. Let us know your thoughts below. I'm going to put up a poll on the audio platforms. What should the poll be? I think it's going to be about which of the situations, like which of the conspiracies or theories is the most likely, so you can vote on what you think.
If you all don't vote Yeti, I swear.
Oh, you're going to be so disappointed if that's the case.
Actually, no, you don't have to, because that may not be why they disappeared. I get that, but they saw it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I'll put two options. I'll do Yeti deadly and then Yeti friendly.
Yeti passive, Yeti...
Yeah. So you can vote on those over at the audio platforms. Go check them out, links below. And thank you very much for watching, and thanks to the sponsors for sponsoring this episode. Remember to share it around. Share it with some friends, like-minded friends who like this kind of stuff, and feel free to rate us on the platforms. It really does help a lot. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. See you later.